My name is Lauren Mitchell. I teach 5th grade at Eastwood Elementary, a quiet school nestled just outside of Portland. You'd think that after a decade in this job, nothing would surprise me anymore. But then came Michael. Michael Hayes was the new gym teacher, tall, charismatic, with a voice that could command any room and a smile that made the younger staff giggle like middle schoolers. We weren't friends at first. Honestly, we barely interacted outside of staff meetings and those rushed lunch breaks where half your sandwich is eaten standing in the hallway. But everything changed during the winter break. It started at the district holiday party, cheap wine, even cheaper decorations, and an awkward band that couldn't quite stay in tune. Michael and I ended up talking near the punch bowl, both of us trying to avoid the principal's drunken attempt at karaoke. It was harmless at first, jokes, small talk, a shared laugh about how awful the eggnog was. Then, we kissed. It wasn't planned. It just happened. Maybe it was the stress of the semester or the wine or how lonely December always feels. We didn't sleep together, and we both agreed it was just a moment, a slip. We were adults. We could move on, pretend it didn't happen. And for the first week back after break, we did. But Michael started acting differently. He'd linger by my classroom door between periods. He began texting me late at night, not flirty, but oddly intense. Like, "Why haven't you replied?" or "Are you ignoring me?" I tried to keep it professional, but it didn't stop. Then came the paranoia. He believed I had told people about what happened between us. Suddenly, he was cold in meetings. He started spreading rumors, quietly, carefully, implying that I was emotionally unstable, that I had a history of inappropriate relationships. I overheard him whispering to the school counselor one day, "She's not well. Keep an eye on her around the kids." I wanted to believe it was a misunderstanding. Maybe he felt embarrassed. Maybe I had unknowingly triggered some insecurity. But it escalated, fast. He sent me a message one night, 2:14 a.m. "If you ruin my career, I'll ruin yours. I swear on everything I have." I remember staring at my phone, heart pounding, hands trembling. Was this really happening? At school, he'd smile like nothing was wrong. In the hallways, he was Mr. Perfect. The kids loved him. The principal thought he was the best hire we'd had in years. No one would believe me. Who would they believe? The beloved coach or the quiet 5th grade teacher? But the worst part wasn't what he did publicly. It was the way he made me question reality. He'd walk by and say, "Rough night?" with a smirk. Or leave sticky notes on my desk, "You look tired today. Everything okay?" It was always just ambiguous enough that if I complained, I'd sound paranoid. And maybe I was becoming paranoid. The anxiety started small, just a tightness in my chest after school, a sleepless night here and there. But then one morning, while reviewing spelling tests, my vision blurred, and my hands went numb. I collapsed. An ambulance was called. The paramedics said it was a panic attack. Michael stood in the hallway while they wheeled me out. He didn't say a word. He didn't even flinch. That night, I cried for hours. Not because of him, but because I didn't know how to make it stop. I was terrified to go back to work. I was terrified not to. And then I made a decision. I opened a folder on my desktop where I had saved every screenshot, every late-night text, every email. I printed them all. The next morning, I walked into the assistant principal's office and placed them on her desk. "I need help," I said. My voice cracked. "I think Michael is threatening me." The assistant principal, Mrs. Green, was a no-nonsense woman. Former math teacher turned administrator, she had this calm, measured tone that made you feel like she was always one step ahead. When I laid down the stack of printed texts and screenshots, she looked at me over her glasses. "Lauren, are you saying Michael Hayes has been threatening you?" I nodded. My throat tightened, and I hated how small my voice sounded. "Yes. It's been going on for weeks. He's made me feel unsafe at work. And last week, I ended up in the hospital from a panic attack. I can't keep pretending I'm okay. Mrs. Green took her time. She went through the pages silently. She didn't rush. After a few minutes, she leaned back and said something I didn't expect. I had a feeling something was off with him. She paused, choosing her words carefully. He's been over-involved with other staff. Charming, yes, but also manipulative. I've heard things. Nothing concrete. Until now. It felt like a dam broke inside me. Relief. Shame. Fear. I wasn't crazy. Someone else had sensed it. By the end of the day, I was in the district office talking to HR. They took everything seriously, which both comforted and terrified me. I was asked to write a formal incident report. Then they started asking questions. Had there ever been any relationship between me and Mr. Hayes? I hesitated. My instinct was to protect myself. But I also knew I couldn't lie, not if I wanted to be taken seriously. We kissed. Once. During the holiday break. But we agreed it was nothing. And ever since, he's been retaliating. That single admission changed the atmosphere. The HR rep, a woman named Carla, nodded slowly and scribbled something down. Thank you for being honest. What matters now is what he did after that. And from what I've read, this is serious misconduct. Still, it wasn't over. Not by a long shot. By the next morning, Michael's name had been quietly scrubbed from the faculty directory. He wasn't at school. He wasn't responding to group messages. Whispers started flying. The lunchroom buzzed with tension. Did Michael get another offer somewhere? I heard he took a leave. No way, something happened. That guy doesn't just vanish. And then came the hallway glances. A few teachers started looking at me differently, some curious, some cold. One even cornered me by the copier. You okay, Lauren? She asked, not kindly. It's just, he was really good with the kids. That stung more than I care to admit. Because that was the trick with Michael. On the surface, he was perfect, organized, funny, patient with even the most difficult students. No one saw the texts. No one heard the late-night voicemails or saw me trying to keep it together between classes. To them, I was just the woman who had gotten rid of a popular teacher. And I started to feel the weight of it. The guilt wasn't immediate. It crept in slowly. A voice in the back of my head whispering, what if you overreacted? What if he was just struggling and took it out on you? What if you destroyed someone's career over a kiss? But then I'd open my messages again. If you breathe a word of this, I'll make sure no one hires you again. You think anyone's gonna believe you? I've been in this district 5 years. You? You're replaceable. No. I hadn't imagined it. Still, guilt is strange. It doesn't respond to logic. At the staff meeting that Friday, the principal, Mr. Cardenas, addressed Michael's absence in the vaguest way possible. Mr. Hayes will not be returning this semester, he said, smiling tightly. We've already started looking for a long-term sub. No one asked questions. But the silence in that room was heavier than any accusation. After the meeting, I sat in my classroom and stared at my lesson plans. It was silent, except for the faint buzz of the heater. I kept replaying everything in my mind. What we'd shared. The way he'd turned on me. The hospital. The report. And now, his complete removal from the public school system. I had done the right thing. Hadn't I? Then I got a text. Not from Michael. From an unknown number. Hope you're happy. He's blacklisted now. He can't even apply in half the state. Maybe next time think twice before playing the victim. I dropped the phone. My hand shook again. Not fear, rage. Someone had leaked it. The system had been tight-lipped. HR. The principal. My union rep, they had all promised discretion. But someone on the inside had run their mouth. Or maybe it was Michael himself. Either way, I knew now, this wasn't over. The message haunted me for days. Hope you're happy. He's blacklisted now. He can't even apply in half the state. Maybe next time think twice before playing the victim. It was anonymous, but I knew exactly what it meant. Someone was angry enough to defend a man who had threatened me repeatedly. Angry enough to blame me for his downfall. I changed my number that night. Still, the whisper war didn't stop. I'd walk into the teacher's lounge and feel the temperature drop. Conversations would pause. I was no longer Miss Mitchell, the fun young English teacher. I was the woman who got Michael Hayes fired. A few even dared to say it out loud. "Don't take this the wrong way, Lauren," said Mr. Peters, the chemistry teacher, cornering me in the hallway one afternoon. "But couldn't you two have just worked it out privately? I mean, losing his job, was that really necessary?" I stared at him. He threatened me. Peters shrugged. People say all kinds of things when emotions are involved. I walked away before I could scream. The district was done with him. That part was clear. Michael was officially banned from employment in all public schools across the county. But what they couldn't control, what no policy or order could stop, was the narrative. And that's where Michael won. Even in absence, he had power. That became terrifyingly clear one morning when I opened my classroom cabinet and found a manila envelope sitting on top of the paper tray. No name. Just my initials scrawled across it, LM. Inside were 3 photos. Photos of me in the staff parking lot. One from behind as I unlocked my car. One from a distance while I held a coffee. One at night, my figure lit by the glow of my phone screen. And a note, printed on cheap paper, slipped between them. "This is just a reminder. Some of us are watching. We know what you did." I locked my door. Called the office. The police came. They questioned the staff. Searched security footage. But the cameras were pointed at the main entrance, not the parking lot. No one knew who did it. No one could prove anything. All I had were 3 blurry photos and a sick feeling in my stomach. That night, I went home to my apartment, alone. The silence felt sharper than usual. Every creak in the walls, every gust of wind felt amplified. I double-checked the locks twice. Then 3 times. And then, I pulled out my laptop. I searched, Michael Hayes plus previous employment history. At first, nothing unusual came up. His LinkedIn was gone. His school bio had been wiped. But then, through archived faculty pages on an old school newsletter site, I found it. Red Hollow Middle School, 2016 to 2018. A small, rural district about 3 hours away. The site had one yearbook photo of him, smiling, younger-looking, clean-shaven. But that wasn't what stopped me. What stopped me was a blog post from a parent forum. Buried in the comments section of a post titled "Red Hollow Scandal, What Happened to Mr. H?" One comment stood out. My daughter said he was creepy. Always too nice to the girls. No one believed her. She came home crying more than once. Then suddenly he was gone mid-year. No explanation. Everyone swept it under the rug. There were no news stories. No formal complaints online. But something had happened. Something bad enough to get him quietly removed, but not bad enough for a paper trail. I called the number listed for Red Hollow Middle the next morning. Posed as an educator looking to verify past employment. They confirmed he had taught 7th grade English there, and had left voluntarily. Voluntarily. Right. That night, I couldn't sleep. I didn't just report a coworker. I reported a predator. One who'd been allowed to jump from school to school, leaving barely a whisper behind him each time. He hadn't just picked me because of a failed kiss. He picked me because I was isolated. A new hire. Someone he thought wouldn't fight back. Someone like those girls at Red Hollow. The next morning, I made copies of everything I'd found. I drove to the district office with the manila envelope of parking lot photos, the printout from the blog, and my original HR report. Carla, the HR woman, looked exhausted when I walked in. "I thought we were done," she said, not unkindly. "I thought so too," I replied. "But we're not." I laid everything on her desk. "I want to make sure he doesn't show up somewhere else. Not in another state. Not at a private school. Not with kids." Carla took a deep breath. This will take coordination. It's not as easy when it's not criminal. But I promise, I'll elevate it." That was the first time I saw the full gravity of it on her face. It wasn't just about my safety anymore. This was about how many people had almost spoken out, and didn't. 2 weeks passed. The school started to feel normal again. The new long-term sub, Ms. Adler, was sharp and kind, and students liked her. I started laughing again. I started teaching without glancing at the door every 5 minutes. But then, one Monday morning, I saw something that stopped me in my tracks. A small white envelope in my mailbox at school. Unmarked. Inside was a single piece of paper. "You really think it's over? You ruined the wrong man's life." No photos. No name. Just that message. I stared at it, numb. I didn't know if it was Michael. Or someone else. But I knew what it meant. He wasn't finished with me. The note stayed folded in my drawer for days. "You really think it's over? You ruined the wrong man's life." I didn't tell anyone, not even HR. Not the police. Not my sister, who had been begging me to leave that job and move cities altogether. I just kept showing up. I smiled. I taught. I laughed when I could. I acted like I didn't feel like someone was watching me every time I walked to my car. But I knew this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Still, something had shifted in me. I wasn't afraid of Michael Hayes anymore. I was angry. Angry that he had been protected by silence for so long. Angry that I had been the one carrying the weight of guilt when he was the one who deserved all of it. He had made me feel like the villain for standing up. And the worst part? It had worked, for a while. That Friday, something happened that changed everything. It was during 5th period. The front office buzzed my classroom. "Miss Mitchell? There's someone here asking to speak with you. She says it's urgent." I hesitated. "Who is it?" She said her name is Natalie Hayes. My stomach dropped. I stepped out into the hallway, my heart hammering. A woman was waiting by the office doors. Early 30s, brown hair and a tight ponytail, clutching a red folder to her chest like it was the only thing keeping her upright. "Lauren Mitchell?" she asked, her voice shaking. "Yes. I'm Michael Hayes' ex-wife." We sat in my car in the back lot, where no students could see us. She didn't cry. She didn't yell. She just told me everything. They'd been married for 6 years. Divorced 3 months before he started working at our school. There had been restraining orders. Mental breakdowns. Accusations from coworkers at his previous jobs, including at Red Hollow. She said Michael had a pattern: he would get too close to someone at work, then when they pulled back, he'd spiral. "I tried to report him back then," Natalie whispered. "But the schools just passed him along. He'd resign quietly, and they were just relieved to be rid of him." She opened the red folder and handed me a copy of an old letter, a formal HR complaint from a school in Kentucky. The contents were horrifyingly familiar: obsessive behavior, threats after being rejected, stalking. "He's not going to stop with you," she said softly. "He always finds someone new to blame." That night, I called Carla at HR and told her everything. She asked if I was sure I wanted to pursue it further. "Lauren," she said gently, "you've already done more than most people ever would. You're not responsible for him." "I know," I said, for the first time, and actually meant it. "But I still have something left to say." On Sunday, I posted a long statement on my personal Facebook. I made it public. I told the story. No names, no schools, but the full truth. How a male coworker had manipulated me, harassed me, and how the system had almost protected him. How I had been made to feel like the bad guy for speaking up. And how I had discovered there had been others, many others, before me. I didn't ask for sympathy. I didn't want applause. I just wanted light on the story. Within 48 hours, the post had over 10,000 shares. Messages came flooding in. Not just from other teachers, but from people in all kinds of jobs. Nurses. Retail workers. College students. So many women, and some men, who had faced the same impossible choice. Stay quiet and be safe. Or speak up and be punished for it. I didn't expect it, but the post was picked up by a national teacher advocacy blog. Then a podcast interviewed me anonymously. I started hearing whispers that other districts were reviewing Michael Hayes' old applications. That someone had finally flagged his file at the state licensing board. He wouldn't teach again. Not in public. Not in private. Not with kids. Not anymore. Still, the guilt didn't disappear overnight. I lost friends at work. Some people never looked at me the same again. I became the one who started all that. But I gained something else. One afternoon, a junior named Maya stopped me after class. "Miss Mitchell," she said, "your post, my cousin showed it to me. She goes to Red Hollow. She thinks maybe she was one of the girls he, anyway, thank you." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. It wasn't closure. There's no perfect ending to something like this. But it was enough. A month later, I stood at the front of my class, passing back final essays. There was chatter, laughter, the usual pre-summer chaos. And in that moment, I realized, I still loved this job. Not because it was safe. But because it mattered. Because somewhere out there, someone else might be just like me, standing in a hallway with shaking hands and a gut full of dread, wondering if they're crazy or if what they're feeling is real. I hoped that if they heard my story, they'd choose to speak. Not for revenge. Not for drama. But for truth. And for themselves.